you didn't see last month's episode, let me fill you in. China lied, people died. It's the reality check of the century, yet many people seem to like living under a rock or quarantined inside. While the world shut down and cried
racism
whenever anybody criticized China for the Chinese bat fever, China moved on. In fact, they threw a party and then they got richer. China lied, people died. But a lot didn't. Hey, I'm still here. It's time to face the fact that we have much bigger bats to fry than worrying about the virus. China isn't the good guy. Never has been, definitely never will be. You think COVID-19 was China's first go at lying and killing? You really must have been living under a rock. If Xi Jinping and his communist cronies could leak a virus from a lab and cause the entire world to close up shop for years, imagine the power they'd wield if we don't get their fangs out of our markets, media, medicine, and leadership. Once upon a time, back in the summer of 2020, even the Pentagon framed China as a potential economic threat. But this was before the China simps lost their backbone. Officials claimed they were paying close attention.
So all these activities are going, it's straight from the Chinese playbook. Once again, it's just a little bit more obvious this time of what they're doing and how they're using a combination of compellence and coercion and everything else to try and shape the narrative and burnish the image of the Chinese Communist Party.
But apparently, we weren't paying enough attention. Maybe that was the point. Economically, China took a small hit with the rest of the world, but it also was the only major economy to register growth in 2020. In 2021, its post-COVID economy jumped 18.3% in the first quarter compared to the year before. All of this was in the midst of a global pandemic. Sorry, a plandemic. But the numbers don't lie. China didn't stay down for long. I mean, look at that rebound. But this isn't even the tip of the iceberg, which apparently, according to alarmists, is melting. Maybe you're thinking, shouldn't we care about the economy the way the radicals care about the icebergs? Nah, not when the Armani suit pockets of the 1% are fat like China's GDP. Let me put it plainly. Economically, we're screwed. Just kidding. It gets worse. You think we're the only economy that China wants to see fail? Actually, fail isn't the right word. It's not sick enough. These guys are redefining communism. They don't just want us to fail. They want us in the palm of their hands forever. Remember when it was
racist
to even utter the fact that COVID-19 originated in China? Cue the tiny violin. What a time to still be alive. Look, if you think we're the bad guys for blaming the communists for this mess, not totally sure how I can help you. All I can do is point you to things that are actually messed up, like taking advantage of impoverished nations. Ever heard of the Belt and Road Initiative? How about BlackRock? No? That's how China likes conducting business. To help me explain this, let's ask Jack Posobiec.
The Belt and Road Initiative is the CCP's build-out for a parallel economy using debt trap diplomacy. As we've seen in the current crisis with Russia, when Putin decided to invade Ukraine, he did so knowing essentially that the West would kick Russia out of their economic system. But they already had a replacement in place, the Belt and Road Initiative, also known as the One Belt, One Road. And what it's all about is creating a way for the CCP and now Russia to expand their economic and political influence around the world and establish a system that exists outside of Western sanctions, Western banking, and the US dollar. Saudi Arabia is currently in talks with the CCP to conduct oil sales using the Chinese yuan. The Saudis are the top source of oil for China. So how is the CCP expanding the Belt and Road Initiative? Their target is to develop economic relations with the global South. Africa, South America, Latin America, the Middle East. The CCP offers generous loans to countries to develop their infrastructure, their roads, their bridges, railroads, airports, deep water ports, even government buildings. And when the countries can't afford to pay back the loans, the CCP says, don't worry about it. We'll waive the loan in exchange for mineral rights, resource extraction, and eventually military basing and status of forces agreements. This isn't just a plan. This is in motion, and it has been for years. The Economist is calling it an alternative world order. And if you think it's a long way off from ever happening, you haven't been paying attention.
Like Jack said, initiative makes it sound like an all-around positive endeavor. Positive for China's power, sure. Maybe not so great for the 144 other countries involved. Specifically, the poorest nations who can't use borrowed money to pay back borrowed money. When you find yourself in this abusive cycle, you become a puppet of authoritarianism. Just ask WHO Director General Dr. Ted. He's not a leader, he's not a doctor. And even though he's Ethiopian, he might as well be Chinese, because China's got its fangs in Ethiopia and the WHO. It wouldn't be the first time a leader like Dr. Ted was compromised, would it? When China lends a country money, it basically invests in that country's demise. Here's an example. The African infrastructure debt was estimated to be a whopping $93 billion a year until 2021. A situation like this is a perfect opportunity for China. China can prey upon poor nations with the resources it needs. Then, that nation isn't just in a heap of its own debt, it's now beholden to a global power it wouldn't ever be able to repay. China doesn't care if it gets its money back because now it has more control. You know what's fun and ironic? The left's tantrum about America's student debt. Why isn't the debt of a whole nation more concerning? Why does no one seem to care about China buying up property here in the United States? Looking at you, BlackRock. Probably because China is super secretive about its initiative. And we weren't asking these questions before COVID, so I guess that's why we aren't asking them now. Am I the only one who wants to know why the rich got so much richer? That is why I've got to bring up lockdowns. Lockdowns definitely made the rich even richer. Meanwhile, consumers got more dependent upon big corporations. You know I'm right. Remember all your online purchases? All that excess toilet paper that ended up crowding bathroom cabinets everywhere and stalking the bank accounts of Xi and his cronies. Get this, China's trade surplus reached record highs, and across the board, global billionaires got $1.6 trillion richer. Jeez, I guess you all did go ham on those toilet paper purchases. Look, I'm not saying the lab leaked on purpose, but the results have been too convenient. There's nothing better than a cowardly adversary. And it's not like America's fear of COVID has gone anywhere. I don't know what's worse, being forced to wear a mask or fearing for your life if you don't. Actually, yes, I do know what's worse. Realizing that COVID lockdowns during the first wave only prevented 0.2% of COVID deaths. No, I'm not lying to you like China and the radical left have. 0.2%. Still, fear is as commonplace as a "we're hiring" sign. Compared to April 2020, US employment is down by 3.6 million jobs. Then, in November 2021, 4.5 million American employees quit their jobs, which is a dream for any superpower looking to one-up the competition. Lockdowns didn't just kick our economy while it was rising. It enforced a dangerous mentality that kept people paranoid inside their homes. Are you still with me? Because it gets worse. Have you heard that we're running out of blood? I figured you hadn't. Thanks for the pandemic, China. It closed our schools, slowed our blood donations, and now American hospitals are lucky to receive the bare minimum of necessary blood products. This sounds to me like a slow bleed in America's medical infrastructure. Okay, so some of you don't care about blood. It's not hitting close enough to home for you. How about food? I think you've probably heard of that. Maybe you're not going hungry yet, but we've seen this story before, and it doesn't end well. Hashtag Venezuela. The new normal everyone talked about in 2020 is shaping up to look a hell of a lot like empty shelves, stagnant ports, and rising inflation. That is, unless you're China. This isn't a blame game, guys. Don't be so LeBron about it whenever China and corporations are called out. Anytime you claim to hate the system, anytime you say capitalism is evil, you're just hating on the very corporations who use your interests as their mouthpiece, making you look a little hypocritical. How not to be a hypocrite, and more importantly, how not to give away your liberties? Ask questions. Who benefited from America's lockdowns? Not America, China. And who turns a blind eye to the blood on China's hands? Corporations. The same guys who keep getting richer while also pushing a Marxist agenda. Since China benefited from our lockdowns, think of how well they're doing every time another company goes woke or another variant drives people back inside. We've entered into an age of watered down legislation. The untouchable wealthy class determines how you should feel about the world it keeps locking you out of. Our ruling class isn't the guy we vote for, it's the guy we click subscribe to. We think we're buying their product, but really, we're the product. Sorry guys, it appears we're just below their line. I can keep the questions going all day. Which investment firm is buying up infrastructure in America under the title BlackRock? Who's doing their bidding? Who's insidiously creating debt across the world, specifically in the poorest nations? Who doesn't panic at the mere thought of a new variant? Who caused the holdup on our supplies? Who's been laughing in your masked face for 2 straight years? The last 2 years proved which American leaders and billionaires eat out of Xi's hand. We see the same behavior coming out of big tech, sports, entertainment, and perhaps more startling, we're beginning to see a union between our 2 biggest adversaries, Russia and China. Where are our allies? As we now know, they're being leveraged via the BRI and playing economic patty cake with communist China. Looking at you, EAEU. Clearly, there's a bigger issue developing. This is all a dark lesson for another day, and we'll get there. America's rising global adversary is communist. If China has the audacity to put its own minority groups into camps, force abortions on women, and regulate society by a social credit score, it's not going to hesitate to screw us over any chance it gets. And their newfound love of Russia shouldn't comfort any of us. COVID-19 was born out of a lie, and we've been living through those lies ever since. Someday, the lie we've been living is going to look a whole lot worse. You'll own nothing, and you'll be forced to say you're happy to own nothing. I'd tell you to get some advice on how to deal with your local communists once things get that far, but I'm pretty sure all those people are dead. And if we don't start revealing the truth, future generations are gonna buy into the same lie of socialism all over again. By then, we'll just be a product of a new socialism that we bought into and can't buy out of. A new CCP, corporate communist power.